the camera. Give it off, down.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alex Navarro. Next to me is Matthew Rorie, and welcome to the inaugural episode of Worser Worserer. This is the show where we, the editors of Screen, take two things that are related either in theme, franchise, or purely by our own admittedly tangential standards, and pit them against each other in spirited, clever, and occasionally sweary debate.
That's right, Alex. Of course, these subjects we cover here will always have one specific quality in common, and that is a distinct lack thereof. These things are effing terrible, and we're here to decide which is worse.
Now, the entire idea for this feature spawned from an argument I found myself having one day with Giant Bomb editor Ryan Davis, specifically about which film in the Lethal Weapon franchise was by far the worst of the bunch. The first two Lethal Weapon flicks are inarguably some of the best action flicks the 80s had to offer, with their memorable protagonists, Danny Glover's too-old-for-this-shit police sergeant Roger Murtaugh, and his suicidal and psychotic partner played by an in-his-prime Mel Gibson. Together they took down a crew of mercenary drug dealers, a posse of South African diplomats up to no good, and cracked wise while blowing shit up in utterly spectacular fashion.
But then things took a turn for the worse in the 90s, with 1992's thoroughly forgettable Lethal Weapon 3 and 1998's patently unnecessary Lethal Weapon 4. One thing is for absolute certain, neither of these movies are anywhere up to the quality of their forebears, and in fact they're pretty lousy even without the encumbrance of being compared to movies as good as Lethal Weapon and Lethal Weapon 2.
But the question remains, which is the most definitively putrid of the two? Personally, I say Lethal Weapon 4.
And I'm gonna go with Lethal Weapon 3.
So we've each got our picks, though one of us is unquestionably very, very wrong. So in order to settle this gentleman's disagreement, we'll argue our cases to you, the viewer.
I hate to say it.
Now, to be blunt, Lethal Weapon 3 is garbage and is way, way worse than Lethal Weapon 4. It actively reinterprets the series as a self-parody, complete with wacky hijinks that ring especially false given the more serious tone of the first couple of films. Even the dramatic beats are so elaborately melodramatic that they might as well have come from a very special episode of some TGIF sitcom.
Get out my balcony!
Look, you're drunk, Raj, all right?
Oh, that's something you should know about. Huh?
Look,
Hey.
this isn't gonna do you any good.
Hey, give me that.
No! Give
Hey,
me, I'm sorry.
back to me.
Raj, please don't do this, okay?
Part of the problem with Lethal Weapon 3 is the random collection of set-piece moments that are strung together without little touches like making sense or a narrative. But hey, who needs that crap when you can have Riggs and Murtaugh blow up a mother effing building or drive a motorcycle off an unfinished section of highway? This movie seems to have been extracted fully formed from some Joel Silver wet dream, one seemingly devoid of the need to pay a competent screenwriter. Without going into too much detail on the plot of the film, let's hit a few of the lowlights, beginning with Dolores. She's a wisecracking, sassy security guard who decides that rather than concentrate on driving her armored car during a high-speed chase, she'd rather sing off-key and woo Murtaugh. There's an endless string of these kinds of situations in this movie, where people act in ways that no one would reasonably expect them to, for the sake of crappy gag comedy that's aimed at the lowest common denominator.
Get off!
Is she fired?
Yes, she's fired.
Is she fired?
No, all right, no.
It's all right, baby. It's all right.
Dolores' role is mercifully cut short after the car chase, although she does appear a bit later on to deliver this memorably terrible line.
You tell that man that he's the jam in my jelly roll.
Note the end of that scene. It's one of a few in this film that features the old, haha, we're not really gay scenario for a cheap laugh.
I didn't.
Sergeant, we have got to talk. You've got to come see me.
But let's talk about Joe Pesci a bit.
Hey, we're back. We're back!
His character here is one of those singularly annoying to appear in a film that doesn't star Jim Carrey or Larry the Cable Guy. And if he's supposed to act as comic relief, then somebody needs to re-examine what they think comedy is. Leo Getz is a black hole of anti-humor, making you actively wish for your own death when he appears on screen. The filmmakers even go so far as to introduce him with a sad trombone sound effect later on in the movie. So the obvious question follows, why the F is he in this movie to begin with, if all of his other characters and even the directors seem to treat him with contempt?
Take it easy, 2 days.
All right. 2 days and you'll be out, no problem.
All right.
Okay?
Hey, see you guys.
Yeah, we won't make a move without you.
Lastly, it has to be said that Murtaugh's maudlin soul-searching after shooting a teenage friend of his son's in the middle of the film is painful. Danny Glover is not the world's best actor, and this series is hardly known for sensitive, emotional performances. But even so, the interplay between Glover and Gibson on Murtaugh's boat is so overwrought that it would make the writing staff of a telenovela cringe and embarrassment.
You had no choice. I know. It didn't happen to you, Riggs. It happened to me. It happened to me.
These are just a few reasons why Lethal Weapon 3 sucks on toast. And we haven't even mentioned the heaping helping of cliches that are served up in this movie, such as Murtaugh perpetually being 3 days from retirement.
I didn't realize that my retirement was going to screw you.
Ultimately, Lethal Weapon 3's greatest sin is that it tarnished the otherwise fine reputation of the first two films by stringing out a nonsensical plot over nonsensical set.
What do you think it Riggs done for that? Riggs!
Well, I'm thinking we should cut the blue wire.
Hey, wait!
What?
That's not what I'm thinking.
What? Do you think maybe the red?
No. I'm thinking that is evil.
Essentially becoming a live-action version of the McBain parody from The Simpsons. It's not just a movie that shouldn't have been made. It's one of those rare Star Wars prequel-esque films that actually somehow makes other films look bad just by existing.
Word. Yeah, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care.
Matt, by all means, I will grant you that Lethal Weapon 3 is absolutely a lame duck. But whereas it was merely a dull and mostly forgettable entry in the series, Lethal Weapon 4 is anything but forgettable. It is distinctly memorable in its sheer, unadulterated awfulness. The film's biggest goal seems to be to turn these once unwieldy loose cannons into complete and utter pussycats.
We're not too old for this shit.
Not only is Murtaugh way too old for this shit at this point,
We're not too old for this shit. I'm not going to get corn. Yeah, I got corn.
now Riggs is too. He's got a pregnant girlfriend in Rene Russo's Lorna character, and he spends most of the movie waffling about whether or not he should marry her.
Lorna, we never ever talked about marriage.
Marriage pops up again in Murtaugh's family as the script stitches on a subplot about Roger's oldest daughter getting secretly married to a screechy, awkward police detective named Lee Butters, played by the ever-increasingly unfunny Chris Rock.
A nut cup?
Murtaugh also doesn't know he's the father of her baby, and he takes Butters' frequent attempts to win Roger's approval as evidence that he has a gay crush on him, again with the gay humor.
No, I was just hoping maybe we could get together around the holidays, say Christmas, we all come.
Hey, why the hell should we get together and see each other on Christmas?
That is about the range of this film's cleverness when it tries to go comedic. A lot of people complained about Joe Pesci's insane overuse in Lethal Weapon 3. Here in 4, Pesci is given a little less screen time, though is no less obnoxious and pointless in his few scenes attempting to play Private Eye because, well, it's something for him to do and it was probably contractually obligated that he be in the movie. By the same token, the gap of grating obnoxiousness is filled to the point of overflowing by Rock, who repeatedly digs his unfunny bone directly into the spine of this picture with lame jokes that feel like cast-offs from his decade-old stand-up routines. For instance, there's this scene where the movie literally stops dead in its tracks just to let him do this god-awful monologue.
I never lost my mother's phone. Took you 2 hours to make a damn long distance call. 4. 5. Oh, I messed up. Hang up. Gotta do it again. 4. 5. I never lost my Sports Illustrated.
Not content to let it mercifully end there, the film lets Pesci get into the mix, and he and Rock have a contest of who can shout the loudest and make the audience hate them the most. Dear God, this scene should have been incinerated on the editing room floor. Oh, by the way, there's also a boring-as-hell main storyline about a Chinese triad smuggling people into the country, including a family that Murtaugh inexplicably takes home with him because, I don't know, compassion?
I'm freeing slaves. I'm freeing slaves.
Murtaugh and the head of the family have a few exchanges of awkward pleasantness until Jet Li, an ill-defined triad enforcer who likes to carry on prayer beads for some reason, shows up with his gang and takes the family away, setting Murtaugh's house ablaze in the process, and finally finishing what has happened in every single Lethal Weapon film up to this point in destroying his home. Now, I'll give the film its one piece of due credit here for the ensuing car chase that features Murtaugh and Riggs driving through an effing building. But that's it. One measly, memorable action sequence amid 120 minutes of cloying getting-too-old-isms and some lazy fight sequences featuring Jet Li had his least impressive ever. The final battle between Lee and our heroes goes on so achingly long for how generally lackluster it is. And once it's over, the film settles right back into the sickeningly sweet territory, with Joe Pesci giving Riggs an absolutely bizarre pep talk about his decision to marry Lorna.
I had this pet frog. His name was Froggy. He was my best friend in the whole world.
And a closing shot and credits sequence so unbelievably eye-roll worthy it could only be lamer if some hacky song played behind it like, say, I don't know, Why Can't We Be Friends? Why can't we be friends? Why can't we be... Oh wait, it totally does! Ultimately, my biggest beef with Lethal Weapon 4 isn't the dearth of quality action or clever gags, though it certainly has those problems.
Laughing gas!
It's a desperate, needless effort to pussify these characters into old and responsible adults. It has never been my desire in life to see Martin Riggs grow up and become anything beyond a half-suicidal maniac. Murtaugh was already the old and responsible one, and having Riggs go that way too sucks out all the dichotomous energy that made these two famous. And in the few instances when they do try to play crazy, it's just pure self-parody.
Yeah? Okay.
Seriously, fuck this movie. Matt, I'm sorry. No. No. Lethal Weapon 4 is just so much more active in its desire to destroy this franchise.
I don't disagree, but I think Lethal Weapon 3 really kind of killed the franchise for me to begin with. So my expectations for Lethal Weapon 4 were below stupid. Like, I knew that movie was going to be terrible from the trailers and from everything that we saw leading up to it. I think Lethal Weapon 3 really had the killing blow on that entire franchise.
Just understand, as bad as Joe Pesci is in that movie, and as lame as the villain is, Lethal Weapon 4 still has Joe Pesci.
Joe Pesci plus Chris Rock.
Plus Chris Rock. Plus Jet Li, who is just as unmemorable as the other villain from Lethal Weapon 3, whose name I can't even friggin' remember.
Oh, Jack Vincent, of all things.
Jack Vincent. Okay, sure, whatever.
Yeah. So I don't disagree with you there. I definitely think that overall, I think Lethal Weapon 4 has a more coherent plot, though. Lethal Weapon 3 has a plot that just makes no sense. There's again set pieces that just pop, like the armored car chase out of nowhere, where that ended the bomb in the beginning of the movie with the cat in the basement of an office building.
Yeah.
A cat for no reason. The bomb explodes. Never explained why it's there.
Well, no,
why
it exists because who is it? Like Joel Silver found out about this building in like Florida that he could he was able to buy in order to blow up
for $150,000.
So they just added it to the script, I guess, because hey, explosions.
All right,
awesome.
yeah, I guess. The whole thing was a setup for them to be busted down to patrol, and they were busted down to patrol for about 10 minutes of screen time, just enough time to get into the armored car chase, and then, hey, we're lieutenants again, all right.
But okay, the same shit happens, though, in Lethal Weapon 4. Like, they become captains so that they can stay off the streets. But then they still blow stuff up, and then they're back to being sergeants again at some point. And
these movies don't make sense. Like, my point about them is that these movies make people into the way Riggs was on Lethal Weapon 1. They just make me apoplectic and putting a gun in my mouth. Both of them.
That's fair. So, Matt, I think you and I are basically deadlocked at this point. So I think that the only way we're going to be able to get a tiebreaker out of this is to bring it to the man who actually started this nonsense to begin with. Live via satellite, Giant Bomb's Ryan Davis. Ryan, what do you got for us?
Thanks, guys. So between Lethal Weapons 3 and 4, it's not even an argument. Clearly, Lethal Weapon 3 is the worst of the two. I'll give you 3 good reasons why. All right, number 1, the villain. I can't even remember who the villain is in Lethal Weapon 3. And yeah, okay, Jet Li is maybe not at his Jet Li-est in Lethal Weapon 4, but at least he's memorable. He is like a psycho crazy badass. There's a scene where he threatens Rene Russo's belly with like a knife. Like, that's crazy and scary. And again, it's stuck in my mind, so you'll point towards Lethal Weapon 4. Number 2, less Leo gets in Lethal Weapon 4. I don't care how much Chris Rock is in the movie and how bad he may be. Nothing compares to how awful Joe Pesci is as Leo gets. And number 3, big action sequences. It's an action movie, right? And Lethal Weapon 3, there's the motorcycle jumping off the freeway. I guess that's kind of a big scene. But Lethal Weapon 4 has that amazing extended chase sequence in the middle where they go through a building at one point. And then they're chasing on a freeway, and they hop up onto the back of like a prefab house, and they're fighting the back of it, and they're falling off. It's so crazy and over the top. It just, that alone makes Lethal Weapon 4 better. So yeah, Lethal Weapon 3, clearly the worst of the two.
So that was Ryan Davis who gave the ultimate word. Lethal Weapon 3 is the worst Lethal Weapon movie.
You're so wrong. You're both so wrong. But you know what, Ryan? You make a compelling argument. I'm conceding this one. Good battle, sir.
We might be wrong, but nobody's right in this fight, unfortunately.
Indeed. Well, we hope you enjoyed the inaugural edition of Worse or Worserer. If you have any ideas for more terrible movies that we can compare, feel free to throw them into the comments. Once again, I'm Alex Navarro.
I'm Matthew Rorie.
And we'll see you next time. Just do leg squats. If you need to move, just do leg squats.